So we're back with this second of these. Hopefully we'll enjoy it more than the one I covered previously. While I don't have any great hopes that they've improved the layout, I didn't really have any attachment with the material. I thought I'd be really interested in it, considering that it is the earliest and most well-documented plane, as it's been revisited and revisited throughout the years. But I guess I don't know. I just, for the most part, although there were a couple sections that I did find a great deal of interest in, overall I would say I was pretty much disappointed with it. But this one is covering the sort of plane that when I was first buying it for myself, this was the plane that was in standard, and I greatly, especially the vampires, I really liked their take of vampires from this plane, and I had no idea that I'd be greatly disappointed by most of the other takes of vampires they've done throughout the years, except for maybe on Innistrad. The Innistrad vampires are pretty interesting too. So yes, I've got great expectations just because of that sort of personal tie of this one. Well, unlike the last one, well, I mean, I'm sure it looks great all stretched out, but it's a little bit of a disappointment, the back cover, because on the back cover of the Dominaria one, you had that striking with the weather light suspended in midair. If you've been playing Magic for a while, I remember why I didn't sit here now. That column is just ever so slightly in the way. You might remember the first card releases set on Zendikar in 2009 and 10. Let's see if I can. Zendikar, Worldwake, and Rise of the Eldrazi. If you're playing the game now, you probably have cards from the latest Zendikar expansions, Battle for Zendikar, and Oath of the Gatewatcher. Well, the reverse is true for me. Since during that era, the sort of Khans, Amonkhet, Ixalan, and the return to Zendikar, I had little to no interest in it at the time. Taken together, these 5-card products tell a grand story of this world and its beleaguered people. The names, text, and especially art of over 1,000 cards have given Magic players a picture of the incredible world where this story unfolds, and threats that the world faces. Online articles and short stories further reveal the amazing events behind the cards. This book reveals more comprehensively than ever before the secrets and stories of Zendikar. Well, hopefully that is true, because that was also one of my great disappointments with the last one, is I didn't feel it was comprehensive, and I didn't feel there were secrets in it. It was all very surface level. There was very little new information that I found, and I don't, especially early magic, I am not really much of a lore head, and so, yeah. It represents a look behind the scenes at the work that undergirds all those cards, articles, and tales. The creative team, the writers, and the artists who are responsible for the story of magic create a detailed guide to each world, which helps direct and inspire dozens of artists, game designers, and writers who create the cards and tales set in the world. Now this book serves the same purpose, to inspire you. Magic Creative Team is pleased to offer you this in-depth look at a vibrant and detailed world. It's a showcase for the breathtaking art, previously only in tiny boxes barely 2 inches wide. It's a venue to tell the exciting stories of Zendikar, how it became a prison plane for 3 of the most dangerous creatures in all of the multiverse, and what happened when they broke free. And so we proudly welcome you to a world of adventure, peril, and of horrible monsters ready to devour the entire plane. Welcome to Zendikar. Felt like it was 2 pages there. Gonna skip this. I believe the exact same pages were in the Dominaria one. The world of Zendikar. Zendikar is a dangerous world of lethal risks and priceless rewards. From the perspective of its inhabitants, it is a hostile place that seems to be actively trying to kill the creatures that have the audacity to live there. The danger is unrelenting. Precarious terrain, cunning predators, natural disasters on a massive scale, and the unpredictable ripples of change that wash through the land, all present a constant challenge to survival. Even the mana that suffuses the land. You know what? I'm gonna try this. It doesn't seem like much, but that column just makes it very uncomfortable. I'll present a constant challenge to survival. Even the mana that suffuses land is wild and hard to tame. It almost feels alive to those who wield it, and some causes the land itself to manifest magical effects much like spells. It is a plane of deadly peril. But the denizens of the plane grow up strong and resilient, prepared for the dangers of the only world they know. Planeswalkers, though, have a larger perspective. To them, the dangers of Zendikar take on a different meaning. Ages ago, 3 beings of tremendous power were imprisoned on Zendikar in an effort to prevent them from consuming the entire plane, or multiverse, plane by plane. But the presence of these Eldrazi within the plane is like a festering infection in a living body. Zendikar isn't trying to exterminate all the creatures that inhabit the plane. It's trying in vain to destroy the Eldrazi. Its inhabitants just happen to get on in the way. After centuries trapped in their magical prison, though, the Eldrazi have been freed. The other dangers of Zendikar pale in comparison to the rampaging of the three titans and numberless broods they spawn. Civilization on Zendikar, always fragile and tentative, now teeters on the brink of destruction. And the plane itself seems threatened with extinction. Zendikar's terrain is racked with violent and erratic changes. The land itself seems alive, and its surface and botanical life often writhe as though in pain, causing tectonic chaos, extreme weather, and sudden destruction. Waves of geological upheaval sometimes wash across the world, leaving nothing unchanged in their wake. All this volatility is collectively referred to the Royal. The Royal always seemed to be a natural phenomenon, one of the peculiar characteristics of Zendikar that was perhaps tied to its unique mana, the Hedrons, or its own fierce ecology. Planeswalkers recognize this volatility as what kept Zendikar dangerous and untamed, free of large cities, sophisticated commerce, and others trappings of well-developed civilization. The rise of the Eldrazi intensifies the Royal, and it soon becomes clear. It's weird that that's present. The rise of the Eldrazi intensified the Royal, and it soon became clear that the Royal is Zendikar's own effort to fight off the Eldrazi. The violent upheaval sometimes seems to target the Eldrazi broods, leaving some survivors to try to follow the Royal as a means of protection against swarms of Eldrazi. But the Royal's movements are too unpredictable to follow, and it's all too easy to get caught in its tempest when it suddenly shifts direction. The Royal's effects are violent, enormous, and extreme. They include the following: rock crags. Large boulders and shards of rock erupt from the earth and subside when the Royal shifts away. These spikes can vary in size from large hills to gigantic peaks. The crags can uproot forests and destroy settlements. Dust storms and tornadoes. Wind generated by the Royal can kick up dust, debris, and vegetation, and turn them into a fierce scouring wave or devastating funnel cloud. Tidal waves. Over large bodies of water, the Royal creates tidal waves that can crash into high cliffs and flood the forests beyond, or whirlpools that suck a boat to the bottom of the sea. Sinkholes. Ground that has been disrupted by the Royal often opens into sinkholes as large sections of land unexpectedly plummet to the ground. Gas geysers. When the Earth is displaced, geysers of noxious, sulfurous gas can erupt from underground. Some of these geysers are toxic and can kill nearby life. Meteoric growth. Because the Royal is magical in nature, it can affect biology as well. Under the influence of the Royal, a tangle of undergrowth can double its size in a day. Occasionally this growth persists. Usually it dies down after the effects of the Royal pass. At its strongest, the Royal can dislodge entire plates of Earth and create new ridges and peaks. These dramatic upheavals send shockwaves through the entire continent and can change miles of landscape within minutes. Occasionally, the Royal takes on a literal life of its own. Elementals are common enough on Zendikar, but when the Royal itself animates as an elemental, the result is a living vortex that devours everything in the vicinity, even the souls of the living. Most of the inhabitants of Zendikar have no way to predict the approach of the Royal, though many animals seem to be able to sense it first. Flocks of birds might fly screeching out of trees, or herds of oxen might stampede towards shelter. The Royal sends powerful tremors through water, so swimming creatures, including the moorfolk, often have more warning of its approach than those confined to land. As long as we have walked this world, we have known it as a harsh and unforgiving place. Actually, I'm not gonna read this. This just recaps all we learned so far, but it's not even like it's trying to be from a in-universe perspective, but it's very bland for that. Um, that was a very short intro section compared to the Dominaria one. Titans of the Blind Eternities. Eldrazi are a race of interplanar beings that once traveled from plane to plane through the other. They fed on the mana and life energy of the planes, leaving lifeless husks in their wake as they moved from one world to the next. Their origin is unknown, and their nature is poorly understood. If they have thoughts or goals beyond simply feeding, their minds are utterly inscrutable. Even their magic transcends the categories of spells and classifications of mana, and recognizes no distinction from the mana of one land and that of another. Three monstrous Eldrazi Titans were bound on Zendikar in eons past: Ulamog, Kozilek, and Emrakul. No one can say for sure whether more Titans exist somewhere in the vast multiverse, but these three have power enough among them to threaten countless planes. In their true forms, these Titans are huge, alien leviathans made up of an immaterial substance akin to ether. The ancient planeswalkers forced them into material forms in order to bind them on Zendikar, but now they are free. The first priority is amassing enough energy to leave Zendikar and return to their astral forms. Multitudes of lesser creatures, drones, spawn, and more powerful servitors seem to emanate from the Titans when they are active, much as clouds of vapor emanate from boiling water. Each Titan has its own brood lineage which shares certain common features. The people of Zendikar have named the various kinds of lesser Eldrazi, but they appear in such multifarious variety that they are difficult to categorize. Some speculate that the lineages of lesser Eldrazi are extensions of their Titan sires, extending the Titan's will and reach across the plane, harvesting mana and life energy that is then channeled back to the Titan. In effect, the great multitudes of lesser Eldrazi are origins of the Titans, serving a sensory and digestive function for these alien beings. Ulamog is the smallest and weakest of the three Titans, but it is still monstrously huge and powerful by any normal standard. Ulamog is a colossal horror, towering over treetops and dwarfing the largest natural animals. Though his form is vaguely humanoid, every feature is wrong, making his appearance particularly unsettling. His head resembles a bony helmet, giving the impression of a face, though it lacks eyes and other features and betrays no hint of expression or emotion. Most of his body has the color and texture of exposed muscle, and it is covered in bony plates. Instead of legs, he has a writhing mass of sinewy tentacles studded with bony spikes. His arms, disturbingly human-like, split at the elbow and lead to four clawed hands. His arms and tentacles shift from color from red near the body to blue to bright purple at the extremities. A stench like a combination of rotting meat, mushrooms, and sulfur surrounds Ulamog. It's a rather intense custom scent. All the Eldrazi seem driven by hunger, but Ulamog embodies infinite consumption. Sometimes called the infinite gyre, he is likened to a terrible sea maelstrom that sucks everything to the depth and leaves no trace. Indeed, a consuming aura surrounds him, draining life and mana from everything around him and drawing energy toward him in a darkly glowing spiral. Earth and stone break to pieces, sometimes hovering in the air as streams of white dust flow to the center of his monstrous vortex. Ulamog's destructive hunger exists in paradoxical balance with the creative force he derives from what he consumes. Through whatever process and metabolism occurs inside his alien form, the energy he takes in is released again in the form of wasting plagues, deadly parasites, incomprehensible magic, and endless teeming spawn. Thus he is both destroyer and creator, though his creation is monstrous, wretched, and inimical to life. Where Ulamog passes, the land itself is transformed into broken waste. Though landforms retain their general outline, at least for a time, they become elaborate, chalky white husks. Walking along these blasted landscapes is perilous because the husks are fragile and often collapse under the weight of an incautious traveler. Water becomes white dust, and even the air around the Titan becomes stale and dry. Ravenous and brutish, Eldrazi of the Ulamog lineage lurch and shudder over the ground and ride through the sea and sky. They leave corruption in their wake, spread disease, damage psyches, and drain the life energy of their victims. Well, that's pretty standard, and it's already been covered. The Ulamog brood lineage is characterized by dense masses of suckerless tentacles, multiple withered arms bifurcated at the elbow, and most unsettling, eyeless bony plates in inhuman but vaguely facial forms. Their coloration is similar to their sires, with shade of scabby red, luminous purples, and deep blue predominating. The Eldrazi brood lineages appear to follow into three tiers below the respective titans. The smallest and weakest are the teeming hordes of nameless spawn. Ulamog spawn are comparatively small, growing quickly from tiny larvae to their fully formed state, about the size of a wolf. Some skitter about on spider-like legs, while others slither or swim using their tentacles. It's not clear whether these spawn mutate further. A careful study of the Eldrazi life cycle is impossible. Other Eldrazi treat spawn as disposable, readily harvesting their life energy as a resource for their own purposes. Drones are the next tier up. They vary in size from barely larger than spawn to perhaps 10 feet long. They appear to fill specialized roles, like particular organs of Ulamog's body, and display little or no capacity for independent thought. They perform a limited range of tasks, unless directed by a greater Eldrazi. Ulamog's drones can be grouped into two categories: brood keepers that birth tend and sometimes feed on Ulamog's spawn. As far as any inhabitant of Zendikar can tell, the Eldrazi do not reproduce in any recognizable way. Some broodkeeper drones seem to spontaneously generate spawn inside their bodies in membranous sacs, or like buds growing out of their flesh until they're ready to drop off and act independently. Others implant a larva or seed into a living host where it matures until it erupts fully formed, killing the host. Another class of drones acts as extensions of Ulamog's hunger, infesting land, sea, and sky, transforming all they touch into chalky dust. For some of these drones, merely brushing past a physical surface is enough to drain its essence and mana, and they can even draw energy, since their corrupting effect happens so fast. But most of Ulamog's drones eat with intention, placing a hand or tentacle on the energy source and causing to drain the energy slowly. As they feed, a chalky dust of their corruption spreads throughout the surface they are touching, rippling out to a distance of perhaps 10 feet before the Eldrazi moves along to its next feeding. Ulamog's lineage. The Eldrazi proper are the highest below the Titans. They are generally large, powerful, and display intelligence, as alien as it might be, and adaptability. They might even show unique individual traits. One gargantuan monster, for example, is known for tearing large rocks from the terrain and hurling them at its enemies, while another of the same type seems particularly fond of wading into masses of humanoid foes and strangling them with its smaller tentacles. Some of these larger, deadlier Eldrazi use Ulamog's unbridled consumption to bring about a distorted creation. From wasting plagues to writhing spawn, like the reproduction, the means to which these Eldrazi harvest and process energy that is gathered by the hungering drones is a mystery. If the Eldrazi of Ulamog's lineage are the Titan's digestive organs, perhaps the drones somehow feed energy directly to Ulamog and then distribute it to the Eldrazi of the plague. The results of this horrible creation are as varied as the forms of Eldrazi. Some of these Eldrazi birth new spawn, while others bolster or heal other Eldrazi. Some can afflict a debilitating illness that drains strength or saps memories, and some negate the effects of other magic. These are the mightiest and most brutal Eldrazi of Ulamog's lineage. Most of them resemble their sire, towering behemoths up to 100 feet tall, large enough to crash through any defenses the natives of Zendikar might try to erect in their paths. They are living embodiments of Ulamog's own destructive power and direct extensions of his will. They are indiscriminate in their annihilation, crushing other Eldrazi as readily as they tear through Zendikar's defenders. The mere presence of one of these horrors can reverse gravity, warp stone, and transform verdant land into a crumbling shell. Some drain the vitality from living creatures. Others can return from apparent death. Weird auras, utter stillness, twisting light, or distorted gravity surround some of them. But as diverse as they are, all of them serve as Ulamog's many twisted limbs, extending his terrible reach. Kozilek. If lack of understanding breeds fear, then Kozilek might be the most feared of the Titans. though Emerkle's raw power might be greater. Kozlak is a titanic monstrosity, towering more than 500 feet tall. His humanoid form suggests a bronze colossus more than it does a living person. Covered in greenish plating with an iridescent sheen, like the carapace of a beetle, his body rises to a sort of hump where a human's head would be, which is crowned with an arrangement of geometric shapes resembling thin sheets of gleaming obsidian. It lacks any sort of facial features, but many eyes stare blankly out from his other joints and places on his arms and torso. From the greenish carapace over his torso, his coloration shades to mauve down his arms, and the tight bunch of tentacles where his lower legs should be. His arms branch at the elbow, one pair ends in clawed hands resembling leathery gauntlets, while the other extends into weird many-jointed appendages tipped with bony blades. The air around Kozlak is acrid, and vibrations that hover at the edge of hearing seem to emanate from him. Kozlak's presence warps reality and distorts perception. He is sometimes called the Butcher of Truth, since the actual nature of reality is nearly impossible to discern in his presence. Battle against Kozlak and his brood is unpredictably deadly. Any creature might grow larger or smaller in an instant, transform entirely, or gain capabilities it didn't have a moment before. Even mana, before Kozlak drains it away, is warped and twisted in violation of its own magical laws. Besides warping physical reality and mental perception, Kozlak's presence has a distorting effect on sentient minds. He muddies thoughts, transforms emotions, banishing forethought, causing confusion, panic, and despair. He stirs aggression and inverts loyalties. Those who stand against him lose themselves in circular traps of alien logic, question their own motivations, forget their purpose, or even decide to stand with him. And destroying life on Zendikar, even with no hope of being spared themselves. Kozlak's passage leaves devastation in his wake. Layers of reality are stripped away, and what remains is marred by a geometric, iridescent patterning. Landscapes and corpses alike are transformed into this new alien reality, taking on an oily sheen in shades of red, green, gold, and brown. Rocks and trees are distorted into eerily regular shapes, utterly unnatural, as if following the twisting spirals of Kozlak's thoughts. Eldrazi of his lineage are inscrutable and alien. Scuttling across Zendikar with no clear purpose but destruction. They upend reality, turning everything on its head and transforming the landscape in their wake. They do not convey the same sense of insatiable hunger that surrounds the brood of Ulamog. The devastation they leave wreaks havoc. And leaves the land stripped of life, growth, and mana. It is presumed that they funnel mana to Kozlak himself, but the process is even more unscrutable for this lineage than it is for Ulamog. The Eldrazi of this lineage superficially resemble beasts or insects. They crawl on 4, 6, or 8 legs across the land or ocean floor, or occasionally drift eerily through the air. Legs, tentacles dangling beneath them. They are typically covered with gleaming carapaces like their sire. Eldrazi of the Kozilek lineage often have eyes or are like protuberances in odd places, such as at limb joints or scattered seemingly randomly along the creature's flanks. The appearance of such normal seeming organs on creatures such as the Eldrazi is deeply disturbing. The eyes occasionally seem to aim and focus, but usually only at empty space. Perhaps they focus only on ineffable things that exist beyond the normal spectrum of light. These Eldrazi also have jagged plates or blades of lustrous black mineral that either jut out from or float around their bodies. These sharp projections tear effortlessly through their physical substances, including both armor and flesh, but the Eldrazi seem not to use them intentionally as weapons. Their true function might involve communication, protection, or merely decoration, but no mortal being can know for sure. The Eldrazi of Kozilek's lineage are hard to classify because few common features link them together. And even a single Eldrazi might change in the course of hours or even minutes. Amongst drones is difficult to discern any specialized purpose, or even determine that they are acting independently or following some telepathic command. Many of these drones look like natural animals in their basic outline, ranging wildly from wolf size to about 12 feet tall. Though they share the strange eyes and obsidian plates of all of Kozilek's lineage, spawn have been set bursting out of the corpse of a dead drone, tunneling up from the ground at a drone's feet, or apparently materializing from thin air besides another Eldrazi. All of Kozilek's drones effectively extend the reality warping of their sire, with fairly minor effects. The drones might chafe or alter the forms of the other creatures around them. Some inspire fear or confuse loyalties. Sometimes they seem to wink in and out of existence, avoiding attacks or bypassing defenses. As they move and fight, the devastation characteristic of Kozilek and his lineage spreads around them, apparently without conscious effort on their part. It appears to be the result of their drawing mana from the land to fuel their strange magic, rather than a process of feeding, like that of the Lamanc's brood. Most Eldrazi of Kozilek's lineage are significantly larger than the spawns and drones, ranging from 10 to 50 feet or more. Many of them have almost humanoid appearance, but with many arms and inscrutable insect-like faces. They have elaborate obsidian crowns like that of Kozilek, and larger crowns seem to indicate greater power and closer connection to their sire. They clearly act with alien intelligence, reacting quickly to changing circumstance and anticipating the tactics of enemies. Like the other creatures of Kozilek's brood, these Eldrazi are difficult to classify. Even the distinction between drone and Eldrazi proper is not easily drawn. Like the drones, but on a larger scale, these Eldrazi warp reality around them in much the same way Kozilek does. Some defy death by drawing on the strength of other Eldrazi around them, and some seem to replace themselves by drawing another Eldrazi out of the other upon their death. Some turn back spells back upon mages who cast them or act as mana repositories to fuel the strange powers of other Eldrazi. Some grow from small creatures no larger than a spawn to equal the mightiest of their fellows when they fight as part of a horde, and many of them alter their form apparently at random. They warp the minds of those who dare stand against them and bend allegiances as Kozilek does. The mightiest of Kozilek's lineage are direct extensions of his will and power, standing 50 to 70 feet tall, The land warps into geometric desolation in their presence, and the reality-distorting auras extend to the very forces of life and death, returning dead to life and wiping living from existence. Well, we're pretty short on time, but I would like to finish Emrakul, so we'll see if we can get through it. Emrakul is the largest and undoubtedly mightiest of the three known Eldrazi titans. Drifting to the sky like a mountain unmoored from the bedrock, it appears that she recovered from her imprisonment more quickly than the other titans and was the first to leave Zendikar in search of other planes to devour. Emrakul is a grotesque monstrosity with a superficial resemblance to an ancient jellyfish. The great dome of her body is about 600 feet wide and rises over 200 feet from the tangled mass of strangely jointed tentacles dangling below. The body is spongy, with a lattice-like pattern of magenta flesh partially covered by a rocky crust that changes gradually, from blue at the rim to gray at the top. A lavender light glows like a great eye in the center of her body. Her tentacles jut out in all directions. Squirming and writhing in constant motion. They range from bright magenta near the underside of her body to various shades of blue and purple, muffling sound, disorienting the minds of nearby creatures. She causes an unnatural quiet to fall upon the land whenever she moves. Emrakul's unnatural quiet creates a sense of utter desolation. She is sometimes called the Aeon's Torn because looking at her is gazing into an abyssal void, overwhelming emptiness. Even soldiers massed in an army against her feel utterly alone, unable to function, and cut off from any aid. Remaining in her presence long enough can lead to madness, the shattering of rational thought. Well, if you're close enough to her that you would encounter that side effect, I think you've got larger things to worry about, or you're probably not worrying about anything at all. Alone among the three titans, Emrakul does not move along the ground, but drifts slowly and silently through the air. Around and beneath her, gravity's function is altered, allowing her to ignore its pull. Other flying creatures can move more easily in this narrow radius if they can overcome the mind-numbing terror of her presence. The creatures on the ground beneath her lose their footing and might even drift into the air towards her, flailing helplessly as they go. Emrakul's proximity not only shatters mind, it also has the distorting effect on living flesh. In contrast to the utter desolation left in the wake of the other titans, Emrakul's passage is marked by the warping of living things, while rocks, water, and all inanimate substances remain unchanged. Trees and vines contort themselves into knobby, tentacle-like shapes. Animals and people, including survivors of battles where she was present, sometimes develop fleshy growths resembling the lattice structures of her body. Perhaps this corruption represents Emrakul's feeding on mana in some way, or it might simply be the influence of her utterly alien nature. Emrakul's lineage consists largely of strange bestial creatures, all with soft flesh and tentacles. They do not appear in the same numbers as the broods of other titans, perhaps exemplifying the terrible solitude that seems to surround Emrakul herself. And while they are perfectly capable of wreaking physical devastation, uprooting trees, or carving chunks out of mountainsides, they do not lay waste to the land in the same way the other titans do. Their passage leaves madness and sometimes distortions of living creatures. The Eldrazi of Emrakul's brood resemble normal animals in their most basic outline. They're fleshier than Kozilek's lineage, and they all share the same spongy latticework as Emrakul herself. The structure might be their means of respiration, a sensory organ, or perhaps a feature that facilitates their warping of gravity. The coloration is also similar. To their great horror, sages observing the effects of Emrakul's presence are speculating that some Eldrazi of Emrakul's lineage are actually transformed and corrupted native life forms of Zendikar. This might account for their general shape and suggest the conclusion of their corrupting process that begins with the lattice growth visible on skin and hide. Whether or not this is true, the theory is spreading, and soldiers left with unnatural growths after facing Emrakul's brood sometimes beg for death in fear of becoming one of the enemy. In contrast to the bewildering variety of Kozilek's lineage, only a few distinct kinds of Emrakul's brood have been seen. They are roughly grouped, the weakest squirmy spawn, because they are born in small broods of perhaps a half dozen or so. They tend to congregate under the guidance of the drone. Even the drones that tend to them exhibit no real care or concern for them and sacrifice them in face of any greater threat. Most of the drones of her lineage serve functions related to the spawn. Only two varieties have been identified. Some invade the burrows and lairs of natural animals. Perhaps they kill the animals and use their lairs to hatch their own brood, but the more horrific possibility is that they transform natural animals' young into twisted spawn. Different drones have almost humanoid appearance. It is not clear whether they produce spawn by some means or simply tend them, teaching them by some alien communication how to carry out her work. The mightiest Eldrazi of Emrakul's brood are huge, ranging from 20 to 50 feet. They are more likely than drones to have functional hands, and they have a greater appearance of sentience than the drones in spawn. They are still far from humanoid, resembling great jellyfish, warp mushrooms, or strange flying greys. Among the largest are the great colossi, called Hands of Emrakul, towering beasts with huge claws that dig into earth and stone and tear through walls. So I'm guessing this is a scene from quite the distant past when they were first sealed. Is this the new section? I think it must be. Well, oh no. I guess it is still considered the same section. I will go ahead and stop here, though. I do think the layout is much better, surprisingly, than the Dominaria one, so that is good. I am disappointed, however, in the presentation. At least from what I remember in the original set, the Eldrazi were a huge mystery. You didn't know them until the end of the block when they were freed. You had all these mysterious hedrons and stuff, and there's sort of a quest to find out, and then they got freed somehow, I believe accidentally as part of that. And so I would have liked to have, almost sort of an explorer's log from that perspective. I think that would have made a lot of sense for the subject matter. So yeah, it's kind of weird how because like for me, how like heavy the focus is on the Eldrazi right from the start, because like to me, um, they're not even like the most interesting parts of this playing. Uh, so yeah, I'm not sure why they chose to go that route, um, but hopefully. Um, we'll see. But yeah, I am glad that they did seem to improve the layout. Tomorrow, I think we'll do an opening. I think I might actually want to do another box of the Data Live. I actually surprisingly enjoyed that a lot. I really had no expectations of it before doing it, since I'm not even really a huge fan of that series, and in general, previously I was sort of dubious about Vice in general because of the nature of them just using screen captures, but I was blown away really by the look and feel of things. So that'll probably be tomorrow. Possibly an additional stream later too.